I wanted to, I wanted to take some time to do a review for the book Rise, Kill, and Eat by Doug Giles. Um, the book is basically written as a biblical defense of hunting. It's a very concise read, and it can be read in one sitting. That's a hardcover book, and it contains some really cool original artwork from Doug Giles. I would say the downside of the book is that Doug kind of feels the need to make some lame wisecracks every couple of lines, which, was his attempt at humor, but I thought he failed. I don't think his jokes were that funny in this book, um, even though I do enjoy his political commentary sometimes. I would say the other downside of the book, it's, like I said, it's concise. You could read it in one sitting. It's maybe, 140 something pages long. Um, and since it's hardcover, um, if you go try to find this book, say on eBay or something like that, you're looking at paying around between $20 to $25, which I think is a little steep. I think he could have done it in a soft cover paperback format, and it would have served its purpose. But I guess he kind of wanted to be more of like a coffee table book because even though it's small, it does have some cool pictures and artwork in it, and it's very easy to read. Um, some of the examples that he pulls from scripture are really good. Some I didn't even think of myself, but it should be clear to anyone. And I can't even believe there needs to be a book to explain this, but hunting and eating meat is definitely uh, something that's allowed by God and even endorsed by God. Um, some of the examples he gives, I didn't even think of this one, but the first example of man using animals is when Adam and Eve are kicked out of the garden, and God Himself dresses Adam and Eve in animal skins instead of some kind of cloth or plant material. God dresses them in animal skins. And I also know prior to the flood, there's examples of uh, people wearing animal skins, and then of course um, you had animals sacrificed, uh, lambs sacrificed, um, and then of course after the flood, God Himself gives Noah permission to eat any animal, pretty much every living thing that moves, and that the fear of man would be ingrained in the animals. They would fear man. So, that basically says that man is at the top of the food chain and the apex predator, and that man has dominion over animals, and it's perfectly acceptable for uh, mankind to make use of animals as food. And I think, you know, after a post-flood world, uh, the conditions, it's something that humans need. Otherwise, God wouldn't have endorsed that. I think the human body definitely needs protein to be healthy. And I see this argument from vegans a lot. They're like, well, you could get as much protein from plant sources, blah, blah, blah. But what they don't understand is plant proteins are an incomplete protein, and proteins from animal protein are complete proteins. So it's two different types. Um, you know, I definitely believe that the fats and the protein you get from animals um, are now very essential for human health. And the fact is, man would not have, our ancestors uh, would not have survived the harsh conditions of the Ice Age if we hadn't have uh, killed large animals like the woolly mammoth and made use of them. Um, Another example he pulls from scripture is Esau being sent out by Isaac. Isaac tells his son Esau directly to go take his bow and arrow and go kill him a wild animal to eat. Another biblical example of hunting right there. Um, animal skins were used to adorn temples or used inside the temples in Old Testament times. That's documented. Um, David himself, in preparation for Goliath, uh, he killed predators like lions and bears that attacked his flock. And again, that brings up another example that animals can be killed not only for food, but if you're defending livestock. And predator hunting is definitely an important aspect. People hunt coyotes because they kill other game animals like deer or rabbit, and the predator population needs to be controlled, um, especially when you have um, human populations uh, kind of growing. You have coyotes coming into neighborhoods and eating people's pets and stuff like that. So that would be an example. Controlling predators, which is also backed up by the Bible. Um, Jesus Christ himself documented, eating fish and then the Passover lamb. And then, of course, where the book gets its title, Peter's vision of rise, kill, and eat, which abolished the Mosaic food laws, or the food laws found in Leviticus that God placed upon the Israelites, uh, where God only allowed the Israelites to eat clean animals versus unclean animals. And God's vision to Peter pretty much erased and abolished the Old Testament food laws and allowed man, like as in the time of Noah, to eat anything that moved. But I thought the book was really good. Like I said, I thought it should be fairly obvious to me that there's nothing biblically wrong with hunting. In fact, it's endorsed. It's Hunting is a whole lot more humane and healthier than getting meat from a big agricultural corporation slaughterhouse. You don't have to worry about the animals being loaded down with, hormones or steroids or any kind of unnatural additives that you will find in store-bought meat. And hunting itself helps animals as a whole because the money hunters spend on licenses, and it all goes back to conservation. It all goes back to wildlife management. If wild animals are valued as a commodity by hunters, that ensures that their populations thrive and stay alive. If it wasn't for hunters, we wouldn't have the conservation that we do now. It's because of hunters that we have uh, land set aside in this country uh, that are off limits to people who just want to develop it and tear down the woods and build more malls and businesses. Uh, and you got to give a lot of credit to people like Theodore Roosevelt, who was a conservationist and a hunter, and he got our national park system going, and set aside land for American citizens to enjoy, whether you like camping, hunting, fishing, that are off limits to, people just coming in with money and exploiting them for private gain. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with hunting. It's natural. Um, it's God ordained, and it's really, he makes he tells some story in the book how he gets some opposition from so-called Christians who are opposed to it. And I've experienced that myself. I had a guy on my Facebook friends list. He was an older, uh, supposedly traditional Catholic gentleman. He's kind of a screwball anyway. Had a few issues with him from time to time, but I noticed anytime I would make a post about hunting or hunting pictures, he would make the snide like remarks and comments to try to get under my skin. I could tell the guy didn't like hunting, and that's fine. I know everybody doesn't have the stomach for it. I know, some people just want to go to the store and buy their meat and not think about it. And that's one thing I confronted him on. I was like, uh, so are you a vegan? Or, you sound like a vegan. And he denied being a vegan or a vegetarian. And to me, that's the biggest hypocrisy of all, is if you eat meat and you are against hunting. That's completely nonsensical to me, because it's completely irrational. Uh, because if you may not be doing the killing yourself, but you're paying somebody else to kill for you, and at the same time you're also doing nothing for conservation to help uh, these animals you claim to love. Um, the value that's placed on animal life cannot be the same that's placed on human life. God is very clear about that. We're above the animals, um, and most animals in the wild anyway. Uh, they're either going to die from another predator, they're going to die from exposure, or they're going to die from some kind of parasite or disease. So, in many cases, if you think about it, a bullet from a hunter is a much clean and more humane way to die than what they face out in nature. But these people don't think of things in those terms. They want to think everything is a Disney movie. But the fact is, hunters have history on their side. They have scripture on their side, and I love hunting. I love everything that goes along with it. It's not just about killing an animal. It's about getting out in nature, reconnecting with nature, being in the outdoors. Because a lot of times you go hunting and you don't even see anything or you don't kill anything, and that's just how hunting goes. But there's nothing better than harvesting your own meat and preparing it yourself and eating something healthy. But I would recommend checking out the book. It's like I said, it's a pretty concise defense, um, and it's, like I said, easy to digest. My only complaint is the price of it, and I think some of the wisecracks could have been left out. But other than that, it's pretty interesting, and it definitely lays out the case and makes it clear that hunting is approved by God Himself, and um, not a thing in the world wrong with it. And hope you enjoyed the review. Thanks for listening.